from an Adani point of view, just to answer your question directly, I think, see, it's no longer a question of how we fit our strategy to adapt to this. Is front and center, this is part of our strategy. So when we set out today for the next 10 years capex plans, we're looking at broadly about we're a core infrastructure player, so we are hard on capex. So looking at about $100 billion capex program. Out of that $100 billion, about 80 to 85% is something that would qualify as green finance. Now, when I say qualify, it's not a borderline qualification, it's a front and center qualification. It's end use green. So when I say green, it's either renewable power or green hydrogen, or so basically our investment will produce an outcome either in form of green electricity or green primary energy, which will replace fossil fuels. Okay, and that, and then there are secondary uses like financing, which are driven by green finance, which are airports, ports, etc. Green investments in those sectors. So I think from an Adani point of view, we are 100% aligned that this is the way of the future. This is the way the world is moving. And this is the way the Indian government is also driving, which in our earlier panel I had alluded that 80 to 85% of our investments will be aligned with where the Indian government is driving. So we don't see this as being an obligation being put on an Asian corporate, while we see this as a massive opportunity for an Asian corporate. What we do believe is important, and something that the entirety of the financing, the rating, as well as the entire support system around it needs to understand is what is just transition. Before just transition, let us understand what is energy transition. Energy transition means there is a transition. Sometimes there is a gray line between transition and activism. Right? So activism suggests that tomorrow, please shut down all your fossil fuel based power stations, and after tomorrow, whenever your renewable power stations come up, they will then meet up the power demand. What that means is that Asia will have to face, and in our particular case it will be India, will have to face lack of power demand, or the demand supply gap widening for the period till when the renewable power generation comes up. And mind you, even today with the battery technology not really being round the clock cost competitive, it is something that has to be met over and demonstrated over a period of time. So I think that's one very important aspect which both rating agencies, banks, I think banks are maximum ahead of the curve. I must give credit to the banks that they've invested in ESG. They've understood that in a very, very objective fashion, and they understand what it means when you say that, what does energy transition mean? I think a lot of the work being done by a few other institutions needs to be more detailed for sure, and rating agencies definitely need to invest in this and understand this more in a more objective fashion. And once that's put into place, I think the Asian corporates, and I'm speaking only for Adani here, but I can tell you for the lot of the others as well, that the alignment is 100% there. So it's not like people are wanting to put up more fossil fuel generations or carbon GHG emission projects. Everybody is very clearly and visibly looking at lower cost of capital, higher return on capital, plus from an investment point of view, higher equity multiples being driven towards these businesses. So therefore, I think the world is aligned, the investors in the right fashion, the primary investors in the right fashion. It's now important to actually objectively determine this.